Hello, welcome to the Winning Balance podcast. We are joined here with Planet with Madison.
Yep.
Madison, I appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah,
it's going
of
to be
course.
a good one.
Yeah, it will be. I know we've got all sorts of topics that we can dive into here, but
Yeah, Madison, I'll give a brief intro and then we'll let her do the rest of it. But even like right before I moved to Utah, Madison was killing it in her neck of the woods, which I'm not even going to try and introduce her neck of the woods. I'm going to let you do that because it's super, super intriguing. We are a lot more aligned in what we do than I've realized, and I continue to realize.
Yeah.
Just with helping people in the tax world.
Yep.
But Madison has an awesome story. I've seen her kill it. If you guys see any of her videos, which her tag will be in here, you can just tell she knows what she's talking about. You can tell she's BA, and her story keeps getting better.
Right? So, gosh, it's very eventful.
I love it.
So for better or for worse, we definitely have our fair share of events in this life.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, let's start first, Madison. I mean, tell us, and I told you this before we started recording, like you're talking to a fifth grader. Tell us what you do.
Okay, fair enough. So like I'm talking to a fifth grader. Basically, in a nutshell, I help business owners with tax strategy. Okay. So that's like the very blanket statement of it. How I do that is to help people keep more of what they make. So if you're paying a certain amount, and it's not just a business owner, a lot of people, what I've actually come to realize is that people are having to work 2, 3, 4 jobs within a household just to get by because they're compensating for a lack of or a loss of an entire income with taxes. So a lot of people I work with actually will have a W-2 with a side hustle, or they'll have, real estate on the side. And then that's where I come into play because there's only so much you can depreciate before you get to the point where you actually need capital, right? Where people will deduct everything under the sun and they'll use all these newfangled strategies within the IRS tax code. Great, totally awesome. But where I come in is to be able to set up qualified accounts that allow people to keep the capital and still deduct it. Okay. So again, keeping more of what you make and still deducting it. So my play, if you will, is really strategizing taxes so that you are able to use it as the business owner and as the individual, as opposed to the government taking the money and saying, we're going to use it for our holy wars, funding, our crusade against China, whatever it is people want to say it's for, right? At this point, nobody really knows. And I do believe that the individual and the business owner is going to do better with that money than the government will. And that's really the bottom line, is that I help people to keep more of what they make because one of people's biggest expenses in this world at present is taxes.
I love it. That's a good explanation.
Yeah.
So in people that know this world more, is it pensions? Is that the easiest way to put it?
Yeah, pensions, and I would also say structure. So the biggest thing for business owners is if they can get the structure right, you can do anything. I mean, whether it's a C Corp strategy, an S Corp strategy, whatever it is, if we can get the structure nailed down according to whatever it is that you want your 5-year trajectory to be, then you're in a really good position.
And what do you mean by, so structure, let's say S Corp, I'm in an S Corp. Is this a new corporation for this investment tax strategy vehicle? Or is this using your current structure?
Yeah, not necessarily. It should be your current structure. So really, we're allowed to set up a qualified plan for a business owner based on active income, business income, right? You can't just set up a plan under a W-2. But if you have active business income up to a certain amount and you have reason to be able to set up a plan, what's nice about setting up a plan is what people don't realize is that they allow for the greatest amount of deductions, the greatest amount of the amount you can put into any given plan that's allowed by the government. So if you look at any form of tax chart for the year, they come out with their new numbers every year, right? And they say, you're allowed to put in X amount into your 401k or X amount into this account, or you're allowed up to $19,000 a year gift tax exclusion, right? So if you look at it though, one of the largest deductions you were allowed is actually a pension. right? And pensions did start to go away in about the 1990s because 401ks became the cheaper option and it became the universal go-to. 401k is a form of a pension. But when you take ownership over the plan,
why is and I just want to dumb this down for me and
that's
for
okay.
everyone.
I get on my soapbox and
No,
I go.
I love it.
Yeah.
You're so knowledgeable in this, and I'm like, when I talk real estate, it's the same thing. Like,
right.
There's lingo. Why is a 401k a pension?
A 401k. So anything, if you look at the IRS tax code, there's sections. The 400 section is going to be retirement plans and pensions. So it's basically just the section it's in. So you've got 401A, 401B, 401C. 401k is just what people opted for.
It's a type of
account. Okay. Yeah, qualified plan. So that being said, though, people are more familiar with it because it was more inexpensive for business owners to set up for employees. Again, my angle, though, is all about ownership. When you can take ownership over your own business, your own plan, your own finances, your body, your health, whatever it is, right? You are going to be better off. And yes, with more freedom comes more responsibility, but that responsibility comes with benefits that most people do not have access to because they are unwilling to take on the personal responsibility. So when people set up these plans with that principle in mind, they are allowed greater deductions. So up to 75% of gross income can be put into a plan, deducted against, and then you can utilize that money after the course of 5 years the plan has been enforced to do something with it. Hence then where real estate usually comes in too, or vice versa. If people have already exhausted some of their real estate funds or their deductible options, they can then set up a plan that helps add to those deductions without having to go and get rid of the money somewhere and spend it. They can keep it and add to their legacy.
So they can they buy real estate in a pension?
After the course of 5 years. So again, we're kind of getting into the weeds here where we really get into the fine details. No, don't be sorry. Some people find it fascinating. Some people are like, that's a lot of information.
Yeah.
But in the Pension Protection Act, it says that for a single business owner, a single owner entity, a plan can be enforced for 3 years. For a multi-owner or multi-member entity, it can be enforced for 5. So those are the minimums, right? Up to 15 years. That being said, after the course of 3 to 5 years, you can roll it into an IRA. You can purchase anything short of your primary residence. But what that does is you've reallocated capital, kind of like a 1031 exchange, right? In finance, you have 1035 exchanges. So they walk and talk very similar with their rules. So that being said, you're putting capital in a spot where you can move it around and do stuff with it without it creating a taxable event. Because the problem is they'll purchase something, stocks, or they'll put money into something, and then they'll liquidate it. Maybe they're stressed or they didn't have the capacity to put money in there. Something happens, whatever it is, liquidate your 401k, and then they get hit with a huge tax bill. So if you can play the game within the folds of these tax advantage options, you're not going to have to be disadvantaged by the taxes.
That's wild.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I should say it makes sense, maybe 15% to me still.
That's fair.
But I think it's awesome what you're doing. I think what you've built with what you've been through in your life in a short time, I think is phenomenal.
Thank you.
And so, that's really, I would love to dive into your story.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool things. And I might have some follow-up questions about what you do too after, but
that's fine.
For the sake, I want people to get to know Madison. And so with that being said, let's start from the very beginning. I always say where you felt like adulthood, your career started, which for different people can be different things. Like moving to Utah from Seattle was like, this is real life. I got to figure things out. Or when I got married and different things, right? But what's Madison's version? Like, when did you feel like adulthood, your career started? And we can go from there.
Love it. Let's get into it. So kind of like we were talking about earlier, I do think, especially as a woman in Utah, that people do have this idea, or I was at least raised with this idea, that you get married with the intent to have children and somebody will take care of you, right? And to a point, that could have been considered valid with my experience. But I found myself in a position where I was not being taken care of, at least to what I thought life was going to be like, right? So I found myself alone for majority of my marriage. I was married for about 7 years, and my ex-husband was present physically for 3. So I was alone for most of it with babies. And
how
yes,
old were you when you first got married?
I was 24.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I felt like I waited. I thought, I got my degree. That was the thing, is I have a very good relationship with my father. He always encouraged me to, to get education, to progress and pursue and develop my mind. And I was always, always encouraged to do that, even if it wasn't for the intent of using it. But he actually was a convert to the church. He had a single mom. And so he kind of had different perspectives outside of Utah, outside of the church, with a single mother, that I think maybe subconsciously supported me in how he raised me. So that, I will say, that was a huge benefit that I didn't realize would need to be a resource later on. So anyways, I think the moment where I really felt like, okay, I gotta do this myself, even if I didn't want to have to, I feel like I was a little bit less than forced, more than asked, compelled to start working and taking on more of the provider role, if you will, at least regarding my own life.
Is this like in the middle of your marriage, or?
It was, yes. So I, again, finding myself alone majority of the time, during COVID 2020, my ex was around a little bit longer than he normally would be, because there were like stimulus checks. He couldn't go up to, Alaska where he's working, what have you. So that being said, though, his time being home was while I was pregnant, and it pushed his time going back up there to when 2 days after I had my second baby. So I found myself then in a position where I had a newborn. I was, recovering postpartum with also a toddler in diapers. So we got all 3 of us in diapers. Loved that. Really glamorous. Driving him up to Salt Lake, which is about a 2-hour drive. So from where we were at. And then obligated to drive all the way back on my own to make sure I take care of the house.
Wait, you were driving?
To drop him off the airport.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So it was a lot. You think you can handle it, and then something cracks, right? I found myself, this might be really open, but I found myself, having panic attacks. I was really struggling. And my belief with my own experiences is that I wasn't one to go slap a pill on it. I had to figure out what the root issue was. And the root issue did have to do with my lifestyle, in how I wasn't being supported by the person that I otherwise thought was supposed to support me. So found myself in that position, and that's when I started working.
Do you mean supported, like mostly financially at that point? Was it more than finances at that point when you say support?
Support, it was the lack of presence. There would be, there was money in the account, but the money in the account, it was highly monitored, if you will. I didn't have a lot of control. Access, yes, but a limited scope, if you will. So I was essentially allowed to spend on certain things. I didn't have access to other assets. I bought my own car. So
Jeez.
I didn't have my own car my entire marriage. So I basically said, fuck it. I'm going to buy my own car. I'm going to do this.
You.
Yeah. And it is, yes, good for me. I think it was out of survival a little bit. And again, might be dramatized in the sense that, there's still money. There's still money in the account. But I think a lot of women, it's almost like you're kind of gaslit in that situation where you think you're being told there's money. You're being told you have groceries. You're being told you have a roof over your head. Okay, that's fine. But I'm up 24/7 taking care of babies and toddlers. I'm exhausted. I don't have time to breathe or take care of myself. And I look in the mirror and don't recognize who I am anymore because I look so damn tired. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
So I can be told that there's food in the fridge and the house is taken care of, but I'm alone. I'm alone with babies, and I'm the one taking care of them with no true control over where the resources are coming from and even really where they're going. So without getting into it too much, there was a huge loss of income, not that I was unaware of, which made me realize that I wasn't a priority.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest eye-opener for me, was I realized, well, if you're willing to take a certain amount of capital, because to me, this is where I actually became passionate about money, is that I do see money as a value system, how much you value another person, but also the monetary value is a symbol of energy, time, effort, all of it, right? Maybe again, it's dramatic, but that's where I had this realization of this many dollars were lost or given away or negligible, or they were negligently disposed of.
Yeah.
And with no consideration for myself or what's going on within the family unit. So, hence where I got into finances. I had to figure out how to do this myself, how to get myself out of the situation. That wasn't really the original intent, though. The original intent was to try to save my family, try to bring him back home. I basically was trying to take on the provider role to get him out of having to be the provider in the way he thought he was providing. And then it made me realize a couple years down the road that actually it had been a gift, a door open with what I was doing to get me out of the situation.
So, I mean, walk me through that, because that's, I mean, you have a newborn, you have a toddler, which
yes.
I have an 18-month-old, and I know how much time, energy a single one takes, let alone two, and packing that with a newborn.
Yeah.
What did that look like, action steps to you saying, I'm going through this crazy time in my life already, and now I need to pack on this full-time role, essentially.
Yeah.
Let alone the time that goes into a full-time role, but the mental energy that goes into that.
Yeah.
As well as being a mom. Like, yeah, most people, especially men, don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Walk me through what that looked like. What were your next steps? Like, I have to step into this, but trying to comprehend that is wild for me.
It's total transparency. It's wild for me too. You know, I look back 4 or 5 years ago and I look completely different. I feel completely different. And I don't know how the hell I actually got myself out of that situation. It almost felt like I was being pulled through or carried through. And maybe, again, that was stress hormones, you know, without saying, you know, something spiritual or something that was, you know, divine intervention. It was, I felt like I was almost being pulled through it. So I guess after, you know, the many nights of crying on the kitchen floor, right? it was more, I think I just experienced this glimpse of hope, like that things could be different. And I think that's what actually kept me going, is I was like, holy shit, like I'm suffering, but I don't have to suffer. I was like, wait, if I just take on a little bit of personal responsibility, if I just do a little bit more, if I just do just a little bit more, if I just stay up a couple nights, you know, while the baby's sleeping, yeah, I'm fucking exhausted, but it's nothing caffeine can't fix for a second, right? And it's temporary, because things do have to change and things can get better. And just like the ocean ebbs and flows, there's going to be ebbs and there's going to be flows. And in my mind, it was more, it's just going to be a small season, right? I just have to bust my ass for 6 months. I can do 6 months, right? I can do 3 months. And I was already up anyways at night. So I would study, and I got on my licensure at night. And, you know, when the kids went to bed, I would stay up a little bit later. If I had to have a little caffeine, if I had to have something to take the edge off, I would. I didn't, at that point, I didn't care. I didn't care if it was so I haven't, shit. I mean, I probably shouldn't go into that, but like,
you gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
And I mean, even on that note, I mean, there have been moments with business and not having, again, support, where you have to get a little scrappy. And my sister and I talk about this all the time. It's like, you gotta get a little scrappy sometimes. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be an identity thing. Like, you're not going to be suffering forever. You're not going to be working that little side waitressing job forever. Like, it's just, you just got to get a little scrappy for a second and it'll change. And I think that's what people don't realize is that if you just put in that little extra degree of work that most people aren't doing, yeah, the late nights suck. Yeah, but I'm already tired. That was my mentality. It was like, I'm already so fucking beyond tired that what's just being a little bit more tired at this point? That was kind of my mentality, is it wasn't really fully thought out. I just did it. And I think a lot of people become crippled by actually taking action, as we've talked about too, where people, they want to showcase that they're a certain way, or they want to talk about it until they're blue in the face, but what are they actually doing to change their lives behind the scene other than just talking about it?
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about that. Like,
maybe you should.
Well, no, I'll get off my soapbox. But I mean, the truth of it is, especially in today's day and age, with information being thrown at your way 100 miles per hour. I'm in the event space, so I know firsthand. People go to these events. I see the same faces for 3 years, and they're in the same spot after 3 years. And going to the events is awesome. Learning is awesome. But if you don't do anything, the hard part, then you're going to be the same place you were yesterday.
Yep.
So, firm believer in that. How did you, I think you've told me this story before, but I'd love for you to tell the audience, how did you get into this space? Like, how did you know what direction you had at that time?
Yeah. This is the part, again, I do believe that was inherited, and I will never tell anybody otherwise, where my dad, he was raised by a single mom. He ended up, getting recruited by BYU, ended up getting a degree at a really prestigious school. BYU is prestigious, whether or not, regardless of people's opinions, it's a good school.
Yeah, I agree.
So he kind of set that foundation where he's been in the financial industry for 30, 40 years, right? So from his resources that were at my disposal, I was able to springboard off of his network. Again, I will never tell anybody otherwise. That is the degree of nepotism that I was allotted. So for me to say, like, yeah, I bootstrapped, I went out there and met all these people and blah, blah, blah. No. I had resources, and I said, what resources can I take advantage of? Yeah. And I did. And I think you got to get a little scrappy. Like, if you need to take advantage of resources that are at your disposal, do whatever you can. If you have to play the I'm the single mom card, cool. If you got to play the I'm a woman card, cool. Honestly, have at it, because that's your angle. Yeah. And again, like you said, there's so many voices online that if you don't have an angle, you're just going to blend in.
I 100% agree.
Right.
And I don't think just because you had opportunities, that doesn't discredit anything that you've built either.
For sure.
Yes.
So. No, I greatly appreciate that, because I did have to, do a lot of the work. I had to get the licensure. I had to make sure. My dad's one of those who will say, here's the open door, but you've got to go walk through it. Yeah. So I'd give him a call, be like, I need help with this. I'll figure it out. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to do it myself.
Well, I see how much you grind on just like, I know that about you. So
I appreciate that.
People will throw that out there, I'm sure, or think that, but it doesn't discount to any degree what you've built, in my opinion, because I'm the firm believer of no one's self-made. Like, there's
valid.
Even if, like, whether it's a family member, whether it's a mentor, like, my pops has been like an amazing resource for me in a lot of ways, but he's not a real estate guy. Yeah. Like, I found Sweet Scotty T is his name. Yeah. Like, this ex-alcoholic, crazy dude, wears 2 different shoes in Seattle. Loved the guy to death. He was my, like, there's not an ounce that I could say I was self-made in a lot of reasons, but like, in terms of real estate, I got to give a lot of, like, flowers where they're due.
Yeah. So. Well, I appreciate that. Well, like you said, you've got to put in the work too. Like, people can hold out their hands with the opportunity, but unless you seize it, unless you take the action, the work's not going to be done for you. Yeah. So that is valid, and I do greatly appreciate that, where I definitely had to do the work, and in times in my life where it wasn't ideal to do the work.
100%.
But it gave me the open door to ran through it, and again, ended up being really good at it. That was thank God. Like, I just that was something where if I didn't have passion for it, it'd be really hard to stick it out. But I think when you find yourself in a position where you finally discover what it is you're supposed to be doing in this world, at first it'll feel like a grind and it'll feel tedious and awful and miserable. And then you start getting the hang of it, and then you start realizing it's important.
And then, fun almost.
Yeah, right? And fun. Yeah. It is fun. I find it is fun to help people and stick it to the government.
I love it.
It's my favorite thing.
Well, tell me about your your family dynamic growing up and what helped build Madison to who you are today.
Okay.
And this is a random question, throwing out, because I don't think a lot of people think of it, but
yeah,
my upbringing and my relationships with my siblings and all of that, I feel like definitely has a big influence in who I am today, and my relationship with my parents. And my dad was the finance guy not in finances, but he was the financial responsible person I look up to.
Yeah.
And how to invest, how to save, and I don't align with him in a lot of ways. He's very, very frugal. I'm probably maybe a little bit more on the other side. I call it abundance. He calls it spending. So we'll find the balance
perspective
there. Exactly. But then my mom's the ethical idol that I've always looked up to, of so many things that make me who I am today. But I'd love to hear your upbringing and what makes Madison Madison.
Whew. Getting really into the child self and all the deep psyche work. I love it. So I'm the oldest. So, I think even just that right there, people are like, oh, okay, she's the oldest.
Yeah,
right?
Makes sense.
Firstborn son, if you will.
Yeah.
So, I was even named after a man. I was named after James Madison. So it very much fits what I'm doing with my career, but my dad named me. So again, my dad is very much an advocate of personal responsibility, freedom, and that stuck with me, because it's not like I didn't have perspective. I've traveled the world. I've been to Europe. I lived in the Philippines. I feel like I've been around enough to say my beliefs are based on experience and not regurgitated information. So I was always very ambitious, and I think there was actually a part of me that I feel like I did lose with getting married, where I think I was born pretty forthright, ambitious, blunt. I've definitely offended my fair share of people in my lifetime. So for better or for worse, I've learned that there's a balance there, but definitely came here with some grit, was raised by parents with grit who do not give a fuck. And they will tell you what's up. And I love that. I actually very much appreciate that, because I think there's a lot of people in this world who are very much willing to just go along with whatever's popular, right? Because the modern currency is attention. And so now, if you can get enough attention and get enough people liking you, you can't just get attention. You have to have people liking you, or it can be to your detriment, and then there are legal issues. So that being said, though, I think I was raised with grit, and that the grit and the ambition, again, sounds very feminist. I do feel I'm very traditional, but that, I think, is what got me out of that situation. Because there was a piece of me that was ambitious and gritty that kind of lost a little bit of that by just handing over the reins to somebody to trust them to take care of that role. And then I ended up having to take them back.
Yeah.
But I was able to take them back because of the way I was raised and my life experiences. So, if there were any other woman, young woman, teenager, whatever it is, 20-year-old woman who might be considering marriage, hopefully they have gotten enough life experience, education, and other things under their belt that are there just in case. Even if they're not going to be making money or being the breadwinner, they want to be traditional, that's fine. The whole trad wife thing is very popular, and I've definitely advocated for it. I like a lot of things about it. But unless you have the means to be able to take care of yourself and provide for yourself, if, God forbid, something happen, I don't know how much I would advocate for a woman actually going forward with the traditional form of marriage.
Yeah. Well, I think the culture here, especially in Utah, makes the assumption that nothing will happen.
Yeah.
And
or if it does, you'll be blessed as a martyr.
Yeah. Whatever they're, yeah. Being from Seattle, which is very polar opposite to Utah, I've seen like a blend of both, and I think there's pros and cons definitely to both. And waiting till your frontal cortex is developed to get married. Or
exactly. 28 for men, 24 for women. We got this down.
Exactly. As someone that got married super, super young, and my wife and I both agree, like, this wouldn't be like against her permission, me sharing this, because we've shared it plenty of times, but we got married way too young. Like, against her mom's wishes, against like everyone's wishes. But you kind of succumb to the culture, you feel that social pressure, and we got married way too young. We loved each other. Luckily, we figured it out. But it's those years of figuring it out were wild. And so I feel like you preaching the word of like plan as if nothing's going to be perfect. Yeah. Because it rarely is going to be the perfect world. And even if you love someone to this degree, there is some smart things you can do to prepare in case, like, even if you had to step in and your marriage still worked, like, that is an excellent tool that you could have utilized to so I think it's a great message that I think Utah specifically needs to hear more than most places.
I do too.
In America, because it's sad. Like, I see this time and time again. It's marriage is almost like a ticket out for a lot of these women. They're like, I'm free. I don't have to worry about development in general, self-development, my career, whatever it might be. But then you fast forward and it's a starting over, a crazy awakening. So I appreciate you sharing that.
No, of course. I appreciate the acknowledgement of it too, because it is, it's nice to feel validated sometimes when that's not it. There's still aspects of getting divorced and moving on that is frowned upon. Right. I think it's becoming more and more acceptable that a woman chooses herself and even her kids at the expense of a marriage. And that wasn't my first choice. It's not like I didn't fight like hell to keep it together, but that wasn't the perspective that was received. So I agree with, self-development and being able to focus more on yourself, where if you do, then, two sovereign people are going to do better than one person trying to pull the other one up. And I think, too, the problem is that women will experience is they don't realize that something's actually going wrong within a marriage until they get sick, until they find themselves alone with a baby, until they find themselves in a very, I call it the Fontaine effect, where you read Les Miserables, or you watch the musical or whatever it is, and you find yourself in a Fontaine position where, he spent a summer by my side, and then he left when the autumn came, and I'm left with a baby, and I've got to work in the fucking soap factory. And the thing is, what people don't realize is that regardless of feminism, there's still a degree of that exists in this world where, man and woman alike. I mean, I've seen men have awful experiences as well within their own marriages where they have to do everything because the woman hasn't developed herself. So regardless of whether the goal is marriage or not, to each their own. It didn't end up being my story. But that being said, the personal development, the self-development, finding purpose in life that is outside of another person is going to do you good no matter what.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think just my random ADD thought is you bring up feminism, and a lot of people bring that up as like a bad thing, but my realization lately has been these labels that stick people into a way of thinking. Whereas like feminism in its simplest foundation is like, yes, I want my daughter to be educated. I want my daughter to feel empowered and not to be submissive just to any man that thinks they hold power over her. Like, I feel like that same thing with politics, with
Yes.
whatever labels are sometimes in our generation. And it's probably not just our generation, but I feel like now more than ever with it being divisive is, oh, you can't lean this way, you can't lean that way, because all of a sudden you're on the other team.
Yeah.
But it's, anyways, I don't know if that makes sense.
No,
that's
it does.
my random
well,
thought.
no, it's not random at all. Actually, I think it's very poignant because, ironically, I actually think more so ever now than before, I don't know if there's necessarily blue versus red anymore.
Yeah.
I think people are starting to notice, if you will, who the enemy is.
Yeah.
And I think people are starting to wake up and realize, wait, things aren't as they seem. Our food system isn't as it seems. Our financial system isn't as it seems. Why are people sick? Why are people suffering?
Gosh,
yes,
yeah.
everything. Oh my gosh, we can totally get into healthcare. And again, I'm in the insurance finance world, and I see it all the time. I'm like, this isn't what people think it is. Like, there are certain things where I do advocate for, we've been lied to. And there are things that have been intentional, whether you look at how modern psychology was established, or modern healthcare was established, or again, our financial system and what came about with the institution of taxes. I was actually talking about this earlier with people, but people think, and it might be our school system too, where you talk to people about taxes and they're like, oh, well, we got mad over taxes, the tea tax, the Boston Tea Party. Actually, it wasn't just about taxes. And then people say, oh, well, it was a taxation without representation. Actually, it goes deeper than that. It wasn't just taxation without representation. It was manipulative taxation, where what actually was happening at the time is that Great Britain, I don't know if we talked about this earlier, I can't remember, I was talking to somebody earlier, but Great Britain was putting a higher tax on the tea from the colonists. Basically, they were wiping out their competition with taxes. So there was no tax on British tea, and there was a tax on colonist tea. Mm-hmm. So it incentivized people to buy the British tea instead of the colonist tea, so that they weren't keeping money in their own economy, our own economy, the 13 colonies, and it was going back to Great Britain. So it wasn't even just without representation, it was manipulative taxation, and that's actually what's going on with taxes now. So if you take a look at it, you take a look at the tax code and you say, I'm being incentivized one way or the other. Do I play the game? Do I opt out of the game? Because there are some people I will talk with that think it's noble to pay taxes. I'm like, have at it.
Not me. Yeah.
I fell tap out of that one. So because that's the common principle. Not just that, but I do think our legal system it's become so ambiguous to the point where you can't understand it. And that's the IRS tax code included, where one person can say one thing and argue an entire point for it. And in behalf of it, another person will say another thing, argue an entire point in behalf of it, and both can be right.
Exactly. It's wild.
It is wild.
I mean, this is where we share most in common, mm-hmm. Madison, is like helping people in the tax world.
Yeah.
And I love what you said of like playing the game. Mm-hmm. I think too many people view saving money in taxes means gray area, means against the tax code, means higher chance of audit, means this, means that, illegal, whatever's thrown out there. But if they give us a book and we follow a book, then that should be the most American thing that you can do, is
exactly
follow the game. Play. Yeah. They're giving you the book, they're giving you the rules. You either play it or you're paying a lot more to Uncle Sam than you should.
Yep. No, that's exactly it. And again, who's Uncle Sam? At this point, like, who are we paying? There's so many different theories out there, but who really is Uncle Sam?
Yeah.
And is it actually patriotic? And what is patriotism at this point, right? And so I kind of whittle it down where I get to the point where if I take care of myself as a sovereign individual, I take care of my boys, that's my stewardship. And then, I help the people who are willing and able to be helped. That's all I can do. Am I going to try to go out and save the entire country and change things and go rally and start another civil war? No, not my job. Not my fucking job. But I can take a look at the resources I've been given, whether it be personally or at large, and say, this is what I'm going to do about it, because I can control the controllables, as people would say, and I can completely change my life to be better or help other people to change their lives to be better.
I love that.
Yeah.
This is a question I like asking most of my guests. Entrepreneurship, working for yourself, self-employed, whatever you want to call it, is obviously roller coaster. Everyone knows that.
I think everybody knows that. Yeah. I think there are, I will say this too, my boys are my catalysts. Like, I wouldn't be hustling the way I am if it weren't for my kids, because they give me reason and purpose. Mm-hmm. And the times that, you know, when I have my kids, like, I'm on my shit. You know, when they're gone, I'm like, damn, I'm tired. Like, you know, you're just like, oh, it'd be really nice to just, like, not have anybody to take care of. But no, entrepreneurship is definitely a grind, as you know.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, I mentioned earlier, you have to get scrappy. Like, there have been times, especially with a divorce, where my foundation was completely stripped from me. I don't get alimony, I don't get child support, I get nothing. Right? Walked away with absolutely nothing.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely nothing. So, well, anyways, that being said, I've had to get scrappy. Like, my business, if there's a slow turnaround of revenue and I need to do whatever I can to keep it floating, I picked up a waitressing job for about a month. You know, I pick up stuff. Yeah, thank you. I think that's the nature of entrepreneurship that people don't realize, though, too, is that you do have to get a little scrappy sometimes. Yeah. But if you understand the big vision, the big picture, and that there will be stability as you can continue to integrate systems and level up, then it's not a loss of identity. The business isn't going under, but you do have to keep it going. And I do think it's a burden, a yoke that a lot of people don't want to take on, or they'll talk about it. Again, I'm an entrepreneur. Really, what have you done? I just started. I set up my LLC online. Okay, great. You know, I'm sure you see that all the time.
Oh yeah. Well, I feel like it feels like a sexy word these days. Yes. Of getting some clout, but
yeah,
when someone's at something for several years straight, yep. which I know you have been, it's inevitable that you are going to see low lows and high highs, and my lows have been extremely low, and my highs have been like, yeah, you call it manic, what is it?
Manic depressive disorder within your business?
Yeah, bipolar disorder, manic.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. I feel like it's this wave of, you're at the lows, and the hard part with the lows is you have no idea how long they're going to be.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I know next week it's going to look a lot different. Like, you might be in that rut for 3 months.
Yeah. Can you hold?
6 months. Yeah.
No, honestly, on that note, I think that's actually where people lose, is because they'll experience the high, or they'll experience the low, or whatever it is, and they don't know how to hold out. And it's, you can't put a timeline on it, like you said. Mm-mm. Like, you just have to keep holding your position. And I think that liminal space of just holding position is harder than progressing or even digressing. It is the hardest position to be in because you're in limbo.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to take control of everything you can, but sometimes all you can do is just sit in it and surrender. And you kind of have to trust that the work you've done up to this point is going to pull through.
Well, and continue doing the same inputs, which if you're not seeing that instant gratification that our world's used to, that discipline to keep doing those same boring inputs to get to the other side, I feel like is where people lose out on. But
you have to trust yourself enough to be able to pull through, right? It's like you said, you have to do the day in and day out, this, you know, the stuff that isn't sexy. You have to do the back end stuff. And most of the time it is the back end stuff. You know, everybody wants to be the face online. Everybody wants to post online. Everybody wants to be seen, but they're not actually willing to hold position and do the slow things that are going to get them to a point of stability, financial freedom, peace in this life. Because I think a lot of us have missed the point when it comes to having peace in this world, in this life, in this modern era. And people don't realize what it takes to get to that point if that ends up being the goal.
That's so true. I mean, my first time, I'm super open about this. My first time I went full-time real estate, depressed, anxious, like 40 grand in credit card debt, like you name it, literally rock bottom. And luckily the second go around has been great.
Yeah.
Still ebbs and flows, of course, but just more in my groove. But I mean, what are some like actionable steps I say this, what's your advice? But everyone has generic advice.
Yeah.
At which I want like the applicable stuff, whether it's action items that you do when you're at that bottom. You can't see light at the end of the tunnel. You don't know if there's 5 miles left, 200 feet left. Like, what do you do for yourself to stick with it?
Oh gosh. I think the answer is actually different at every income level. I've seen this with clients too, where the advice I'd give somebody who's hitting 30K in a year would be very different than the advice I'd give somebody who's hitting 100, 250, 3, 4, 500,000 in a year, right? Up to a certain point. And so given the position I'm at now, where before I may have had a little bit of a buffer, right? I was working while I was still married. And so it's not like I really had to fully provide. And you can hustle your way through stuff at the expense of your own nervous system in your life, right? And there's something's always got to give. And you can just, wake up and, draw a line and, Coke line, like little Wolf of Wall Street in there exactly. And get going on your day. But again, how long's that going to last and at what cost? So my approach, I do like to run my business sustainably, where if I can automate something, I will. So this last year I started doing ads. Amazing. People will be like, ads are dead, but they're running an ad while they're doing it. So ads are not dead. Organic outreach, I do believe in too. I've also done more kneecap to kneecap business, right? Like, seminars and meeting with people. But I actually feel like that is very slow labor that is going out of trend, or not just out of trend. It's just going away, just like mailers, right? Nobody does mailers anymore. And so I do think if you can't get a grasp on the online world, you are going to be left in the dust. So some of these middle-aged individuals who are, 40, 50, 60, and they've done their business their whole life with just, doing seminars or trade shows or whatever it is, they're going to be left behind. Mm-hmm. But if you can nail down the online world, because that is the direction our world's going. I've resisted, progressivism in that way, but I think there's some benefit to it. And being able to work online has completely, that allowed me to get out of my marriage. If I were to throw a dart at the dartboard and say, this is what I attribute being able to make the transition out of my marriage to, it would be being able to work online. The fact that I can sit at home and make a post and it'll go out to the people who need it, and I don't have to leave my kids, they'll never see the inside of daycare, ever. And it's because of the opportunities of the modern world. So regarding business though, obviously if you can have capital. So that's actually where I do come in with business owners, where like you were mentioning, this ebb and flow with entrepreneurship, ideally we can get it so it's a lot more stable, but that does come in the form of taking personal finance and applying it to business and being able to have access to capital that's not just the bank, the banking system, credit cards, but you have actual tangible capital. Similar to like real estate, I like tangible assets. I like real capital. I'm a gold advocate. Like I like things that if shit hit the fan, you can hold it in your hand or you can grab the dirt. I like things that are very tangible. And when you have capital that you've pooled together yourself and your business, you've set things aside, then those low lows aren't as heavy because then you can live off of a little bit of, you can pay yourself a certain wage that's passive. It becomes interest returns at that point or compound interest, and you're able to reallocate capital in a way that's beneficial. You're better off putting money into a pension account that's going to grow at 8% than putting it toward a car where when shit hits the fan, you have to collateralize, right? Then you have to go back to the banks. You have to go crawling on your hands and knees back to the banks again. Oh, but wait, my credit score is bad right now. I can't do that right now. I've got to figure something else out. And then you've got to liquidate things. And ideally, in real estate, you don't want to liquidate. So that's really where I come in my own experience too, is trying to stabilize the business so that you don't have to have those crazy ebbs and flows and you can stick with it and add to quality of life, which then will lead to financial freedom.
So let's hear like a real life example. And the other question that I do want to ask is like how insurance is related to what you do. But okay. Before, and you could probably tie that into this answer, but give us a real life example of like someone is setting up a pension account with you, are they putting in 50 grand a year? Is it like a lump sum at the beginning, monthly?
Yeah.
Like walk us through like a real life, maybe a typical, which I'm sure there's a wide range, but just an example of one, which you threw out the 8% return, right? So if you could use numbers, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I can use numbers. So, obviously, like you said, it ranges, but typically what I'll see is there'll be a client, we'll just say instead of just being solely a business owner, they have a W-2 side hustle, or they have a W-2 and a side hustle. So we'll take a look at their gross income. Based on their own gross income, we could set up a pension. Pensions typically, if not doing more than 25 grand, if you're doing like 50, that's usually the range I see. So people will put about 50 grand into a pension setup, and it's their own privately owned pension by the business. That becomes a full top line deduction.
So is this, and tell me if I'm completely off. For an S Corp, right, I got to pay myself bare minimum wage. I think my CPA wants it to be like 70, 80 grand that I pay myself as a self-employed. Is this completely separate than that, or can this work in conjunction?
It's based on what you're paying yourself as a salary. So I mean,
as an S Corp.
Yeah. Okay. So that line, as you know, can be variable, where you can say, this is how much I want to pay the business, this is how much I want to pay yourself. You decide. That's the benefit of being the business owner, is you decide. Obviously, working with your CPA. But let's say there's 80 grand, right, that you pay yourself. If you're able to pay yourself, 25 grand of that, put it into a pension. Actually, you could pay yourself 100 instead of 80. The reason they likely have you pay yourself a reasonable salary that's lower is because it saves you on taxes.
Exactly, right? I don't want to pay myself, because then I'm paying double. Yeah, anyways.
Exactly. You're paying double income, especially, if you're a C Corp entity, they're going to be paying double. So there's different strategies for different structures, right? With an S Corp, we look at a Schedule C, active income, and you are able to, whatever you want to keep, whatever you want to put into a pension, you decide. Based on your overall active income under the business, you decide. And that's where it does become a little ambiguous, is you take a look and you say, this is how much I want to keep, and this is how much I'm going to declare, and I'm going to declare it so that I can use this as a top line deduction. And you could stick about, let's say you put 50K in, right? That's about the average. You can put up to 77,000 in your own privately owned 401k, solo 401k. If you have a 401k with a job, you're only allowed to put in about 22,500, 23,500, right? So again, you're limited. When you're not limited, you get to decide. So you decide how much you put in. A lot of my clients will do about 50 to 100. Put 50 to 100 into a pension. And that is going to grow. Actually, it can grow more than 8%. I say 8% because it's not guaranteed. But you asked how life insurance comes into this. So in accordance with the IRS tax code, we are actually required to use life insurance and annuity products, at least 40% of it. That being said, it provides a guaranteed floor, so you're not losing anything. Because the whole premise with a pension is a guarantee. You get a guaranteed pension when you retire. That's how it used to be for boomers, for my grandpas. They got a pension. And that pension would pay them a certain amount every single year, guaranteed until they die.
Like the big GMC, whatever those are.
Yep.
Okay.
IBM just set up their own cash balance plan. So you're exactly right. These bigger corporations will do that for that reason. But they also do it for the reason of, again, taxes. So like if you have a C Corp entity, you can set up a personal pension. You can even roll in an old 401k.
Can an S Corp do this too?
This is more of actually a C Corp strategy.
Okay. For pensions in general.
Yeah. So this is for pensions in general. This is a strategy, and this might go over people's heads. But as we know, C Corp is taxed double, right? It's taxed at the corporation level at 21%, and then it's taxed at the personal level, whatever you decide to pay yourself as a salary. However, you can set up a pension, and that pension can buy shares of your business. And you can run the business with those shares. You can even pay yourself dividends that would be taxed at a capital gains rate. So up to $94,000 a year would be zero tax. So people will set up these strategies. And again, I'm speaking ambiguously because it is going to differentiate per person. But the strategy is to be able to deploy capital into a tax advantage account so you can deduct against it, or you can deduct it against your business, and then still access and use the capital, like a revolving door, right? People say be your own bank. You can be your own bank, right? And that's how it should be. You should be able to keep capital, still deduct it, have it be in your favor, and still be able to manage the business and pay yourself a reasonable salary while it's growing. So you're not just losing value. You're able to utilize interest return, and it's going to keep growing for you, and it's going to keep multiplying, as opposed to just liquidating something, or you're going into the negative with credit cards at a 20 to 30% loss, per, what is it, APR or whatever.
That's wild.
It is wild.
So who's like your ideal customer? Like who is Madison trying to talk to, and how do you talk to those people?
Yeah. So anybody with a business, it's that simple. Anybody with a business with active income, ideally the business brings in about 50 grand or more a year. So that would be my threshold. Anything lower than that, I still feel like you're in newbie territory and don't really need it. Actually, I'd say up to 80. I feel like with personal expenses, you've probably experienced this too. It's like within the $80,000 range, you can deduct lifestyle, business exactly. Lifestyle. Exactly. You get up past that point and it's like, oh shit, I've got to do something. And I've got to deploy capital. God forbid I made too much money this year, So you've got to do something with it though if you want to keep it, or you just worked your ass off to pay the government and whoever they're paying.
I love it. Yeah. Well, Madison, what advice do you have? Because I feel like this group is a lot bigger than people realize.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe they're in a situation, and I'm talking more like on the personal side of like you're maybe in a position that you don't feel supported. Maybe you're about to get a divorce. You could be divorced, and you're starting over essentially. Yeah. For better or worse, providing. Like, what advice do you have for women in that situation?
I have talked to women in this situation. Actually, I'll probably use an example of someone I just spoke to recently, but because I think this becomes more of the situation for a lot of women, is they actually become the hustler, the breadwinner, kind of like I was becoming, and the man will bring in the slow and steady income. That can be advantageous if they're not being a leech. So if the woman is running a business, maybe she's having to pay for a bunch of things within the house. Honestly, in that position, I would tell the woman to start keeping more of what she makes. Mm-hmm. I'm not even saying taxes. I'm saying within your own business. I'm saying set up a trust. I'm saying divide assets and make sure things are in your name. Because the family court system makes so much money to do nothing. And you can pay an attorney and they will drag things out, and your the other spouse or the other person will file these bullshit motions that don't get you anywhere, and they'll just drag it out. And I know so many women who walk away with absolutely nothing because they rather have peace and a life to themselves than be stuck in a shitty marriage and have something. So if a woman was in that situation, if I go back in time, I would have put more of my money toward myself. I would have been a little bit more selfish, and maybe that's not the advice people want to hear, but that's the truth, is if I had been a little bit more selfish, I wouldn't have struggled so hard during the divorce process. I wouldn't have lost so much. I wouldn't have felt like I lost so much. But when you are trying to save somebody from themselves at the expense of a loss to yourself, then you have nobody else to blame but yourself. And that's what I would tell women to do, is to make sure you are protected, because I guarantee, actually, the numbers are 70 to 80% of women are the ones filing for divorce. And I do believe this is why. And I think a lot of it's not just financial, it's energetic. The man is leeching from the woman, and that never should have been a woman's role in the first place. So if it's becoming your role, it should go toward you and your kids. That's my opinion. Very feminist opinion.
No, I think that's
very pro-women.
No, I think that's great. And I think that more people need to hear that, 100%. And it's
be more selfish.
You hear that saying all the time, is like, if a plane's going down, you put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah, you do.
If not, then
nobody else will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, you can't help people if you're not helping yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's a lot of wisdom to that. Well, I appreciate you jumping on, Madison.
Yeah.
The time's gone by quick, and obviously you know your stuff in this world. So
hopefully some of it didn't. Most of it didn't go over people's
No,
heads.
I'm retaining. It's like 1% at a time. Every time I talk to you about these things, it's getting closer.
We just add a little bit.
Yeah. So I love it. I appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, of course. It's great.
Thank you.